What if the reason you feel overwhelmed is not because you have too much to do, but because you're moving at a pace God never designed you to live at? Because here's something that will challenge everything we've been taught in business culture. Jesus was never in a hurry, not once. And yet he accomplished the most important mission in history. So today we're talking about what it looks like to build a successful business without sacrificing your peace, your presence, or your relationship with God. Lady bosses, are you working even after putting the kids to bed but still not getting results?
Are you tired of spending money on ads that aren't getting engagement?
Do you feel burdened that you aren't fulfilling your purpose in life because you are so consumed with work?
I'm your host, Brooke Boltz. I'm an attorney and founder of Boltz Legal. I started my business and in 1 year was bringing in 7 figures and am now bringing in multi-7 figures.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Boltz, owner of Boltz Media. I've helped many businesses build their online presence and increase their revenue through digital marketing.
Want to hear how we did it?
We are here to help you achieve your goals personally, professionally, and spiritually.
So kick off your high heels, sit back, and let's ignite that passion.
We're Miss Biz, where we're putting the Miss in biz.
Let's get biz done. Jesus was never in a hurry. Let's start there. I never thought about that before reading this book. The inspiration for this episode was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which is a book that I read as part of a Bible study that I joined with my church. And I'm so glad that I read it. It had such an impact on my life. And this statement right here is just something that I never thought about. We always think about the things, the miracles that Jesus did and the sacrifice that he made in giving his life. But to look at just his day-to-day and how he behaved and to recognize that he was never in a hurry. He would go spend days and weeks and 40 days out in the wilderness just communing with God. He was not in a hurry. And to then look at that and how that impacted his life in the world, it changes everything for me in my personal and business life. So Jesus only had 33 years to change the world, and really 3 years of ministry to change the world. And if anyone had a reason to rush, it was him. Mm-hmm. If we look at the example of Lazarus, which is in John chapter 11, Jesus was told that Lazarus is sick. But what did he do? He waited. He waited knowing that Lazarus was on his deathbed. Not because he didn't care, not because he wasn't driven by urgency. He was driven by purpose. And by the time he arrives, Lazarus is already dead. And yet, that delay set the stage for a greater miracle. Because not only was he able to heal him, he was able to raise Lazarus from the dead. So we learn from that if Jesus isn't hurried and he is still able to accomplish his mission at the pace and time that is appropriate and not rushed, then why do we need to be rushing through life in a hurry all the time? So the way we can apply this to our business is to ask ourselves, how often do we rush decisions or rush opportunities, rush responses because we feel pressure? But what if your delay is actually where God is working?
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah. So for me, my daughters play basketball. I talk about this on different episodes, and we have had we've not been huge fans of the coaching staff at the school. And at times I have been really worked up about it and wanting to take action by going to the school administration or the athletic director and trying to get a new coach, frankly. I mean, that's really what I was hoping for. And right as things were kind of stirring up again, and I was getting to that place where I was ready to take some action, we got an email that said the contract's been non-renewed and the basketball coach is no longer at the school. And so it was an example of this to me. If I had rushed to go have a fit with all of the administrators and the athletic directors and all those things, it would have been futile because they were already making steps. They already apparently must have known for some time that they weren't going to renew the contract. And so it was already resolved. And I didn't know. I'm spending all this time, thinking about what should I do? And really, I didn't need to do anything, because it was already handled. And so it was just an example to me of how delaying and waiting on God's timing is the best thing we should be doing, not always looking for ways to solve things ourselves.
Yeah, those are all very great points. Finding guests for a podcast can be difficult sometimes, so Brooke and I wanted to let you guys know that we are available to appear on your podcast.
We also enjoy speaking at events, so if you have an event coming up, these jingles can go on the road.
Simply go to missbiz.com/contact and in the subject line, write podcast guest or event speaker, and we'll reach out to you to further coordinate. One thing that's evident throughout the Bible is how Jesus would step away from people to be with God. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5, verse 16, he often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. And this wasn't just occasionally, it was often. So let's take a look and reflect on our lives. Most of us would probably do the opposite because we fill every quiet moment, every drive, every break with podcasts, music, scrolling, emails. And sometimes people don't want to hear this, but if your mind is always occupied, God has no space to speak. If you're constantly being distracted by things around you, you're not going to be as keen on being able to hear when he's talking to you or listening to what he's trying to say.
And it just becomes our normal. Our normal is that our minds are always occupied with something. And an example of this for me was, as I was reading this book, I was starting to become aware of how my mind always was occupied, and I needed to sweep the floor. And I went to turn on some music as I swept the floor, or maybe I was turning on the TV. I was turning on something, and I stopped myself and said, why I'm doing that is so that my mind is occupied as I sweep, so that my mind is thinking about the TV show or thinking about the music, and I need to just let my mind be free. Mm-hmm. Just let it be thinking nothing, so that I can be available to God, that maybe he can speak to me while I'm sweeping, or maybe I can say a prayer while I'm sweeping. But if my mind is always thinking about something, whether it's work, whether it's entertainment, whether it's family, whatever it may be, if we're occupying our minds all the time, then we can't be growing in closeness with God, because he just has no space.
Yeah, it's so true. There's a hidden danger cost of having that constant noise. And it's one of the most overlooked ideas from the ruthless elimination of hurry. Hurry and noise are not neutral, but they are spiritually forming you, because silence isn't just about quiet, it's about creating space for God's voice. So a real life example example would be when you say, I just don't hear from God, but your day to day looks like you wake up, you're on your phone, you drive, you listen to a podcast, or maybe you make a phone call, you work, you constantly have stimulation, whether you have earbuds in, music playing, or you could even be working on multiple projects at one time. And then in the evening, you spend your time watching TV or scrolling. There's literally no margin, no stillness, no listening.
And the thing is that I always thought that was good, because to me, that was productivity. I thought if I'm doing things, I'm being productive, I'm getting things done, I'm moving forward and growing and expanding in life, and had no idea that having my mind occupied all the time was something that I shouldn't be doing. This book just really changed my mindset on that. And now I recognize I have to be intentional about creating space and time to just be silent, to just be in solitude, to just think about nothing but trying to commune with God. Here's another statement from the book that really stuck with me. Hurry and love don't mix. And so envision yourself when you're at home and when you're in a hurry. Just see yourself there. How are you speaking to your family in that moment? Are you speaking out of love?
Probably not.
No.
Probably not.
You're abrupt, you're annoyed, maybe even yelling because you're hurried. And so just that analogy right there stuck with me as well, because hurry and love are not compatible. So if you're rushing around hurried all the time, that means you're not operating out of love. You can't. They don't go together. Love requires attention, presence, patience. But hurry is the opposite. It produces distraction, irritability, and impatience.
So here we have 4 practices to unhurry your life. The book lays out these 4 core practices, and then we're going to apply them to our real business life. The first is silence and solitude. This is where clarity comes from, not in the hustle, not in the noise. And some practical ways that you can start incorporating this into your daily routine would be to start with 10 minutes a day. No phones, no music, no agenda, just sit, pray, listen. A good spot for this would be like in the car, when you're quiet. Also, like if you're home and you just want to rest, setting an alarm for 10 minutes and really just talking to God, I think is a great way to get started.
Or out in nature, sit in the backyard, sit on the front porch, get outside somewhere. That's a really great place to be in silence and solitude. And you might find that 10 minutes doesn't sound long, but it actually,
when you're counting down those minutes, they sure are.
10 minutes can be really long if you're just sitting there in silence. If you're not used to doing it, it can feel very long. But you got to work your way up, because what I have learned is that since I have been doing this, the favor of God seems to have increased very much, like incredibly noticeable in my life, because I'm spending that time with him, because that's where our priorities are supposed to be, and that's what Jesus did, right? First, he went out to the wilderness and he worshiped and he prayed and he spent his time, and then everything else fell into place. Mm-hmm. And whether he was on time or whether he was later than people had hoped, everything worked out. And you have to believe that. You have to believe that if I prioritize this first, then everything else will work itself out. If you don't believe that, then you will never do it, and you will always prioritize everything else first.
That's true.
Do you love the Miss Biz podcast?
Because we love you.
Here's 3 things you can do to show your support.
1, write us a review. Apple, Spotify, and Google My Business are the best platforms to write a review.
2, follow us on social media. Our handle is @MissBizPodcast.
3, join our Facebook group, Miss Biz Nation, for exclusive content and behind-the-scenes footage. Also, ask questions related to your business and discuss topics from our episodes. The Sabbath. This is really, really important. It's one day a week that you can stop. And it's not a partial stop. It's not check a few emails stop. It's supposed to be a full stop. So if you think to yourselves, I can't afford to take a day off, the truth is you can't afford not to. This requires faith. And you have to believe that everything that needs to be done will be done, even though you are spending less physical hours doing it.
And when you think about the Sabbath, it is a commandment to keep the Sabbath day holy. And then if you ask yourself, okay, why does that matter? Why does God care if I do nothing and rest? I'm fine. I'm fine. I get enough sleep. Like, I feel fine. Why do I need to have a Sabbath? Well, it's because that's the time where he builds relationship with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not giving that space and time, then he is not getting to be with you because you're not allowing him to. So that is why it's so important. Not because he just wants to make sure you're well rested. It's because he needs that time with you for you to be in good and growing relationship with him.
Simplicity is next. You don't need more. You need less. Less commitments, clutter, distractions. So instead of chasing every opportunity, cut 20% of what you're doing that isn't producing results.
And that's true. If you're going to prioritize your time with the Lord, something's going to have to give that you're doing now. So you got to figure out what that is. Maybe it's just screen time. Maybe it's TV time. But maybe it's other things. So you got to figure out where are those things that you're overcommitting to that you don't need to be, so that you can prioritize your time with the Lord.
And then slowing down. Now, this is somewhat similar to simplicity, but slowing down is really, really intentional. You choose a slower pace, even when you could go faster. So some examples of this might include driving in the slow lane, not rushing conversations, pausing before responding. All of those allow you to retrain your habits.
Right. He talks about this in the book, and some of the things like driving in the slow lane, or I can't remember the other examples, but it's things that's like, that would drive me crazy to be driving below the speed limit and just being okay with it. Like, we are just so conditioned to move quickly, and and it's become our habit, and we have to retrain ourselves. So we have to be intentional about, okay, I am going to do these things that will probably drive me crazy, but I'm going to do it anyways because I want to slow down my overall pace of life to make room for God. So the other lesson that he talks about in the Bible is in the book is the secret of the easy yoke. So this comes from Matthew 11:28-30, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. My yoke is easy and my burden is light." But what does that really mean? So what is a yoke? A yoke is a farming tool that was used to link two oxen together. So the stronger ox carried most of the weight, and the weaker one just walked alongside. So when Jesus says his yoke is easy, what he's really saying is you were never meant to carry this burden alone. You were meant to carry it alongside with Jesus, with him carrying the burden and you just walking alongside with him. But you can't walk in step with Jesus if you are sprinting ahead of him.
Yeah.
If you're not making that space to find out what your next step is with him, and you're just trying to do things on your own.
Yeah. So ask yourself, where are you rushing instead of trusting? You can actually even write down certain situations as they're occurring. And then make sure that you drop it in Miss Biz Nation. Let us know your schedule, your decisions, your growth, and your relationships. We're all a big family in Miss Biz Nation, and we're here to support you any way that we can.
So hurry is not just killing your peace, it's disconnecting you from your purpose, because God doesn't compete with noise. He speaks in stillness. So if you want clarity, direction, peace, and better decisions, you don't need to go faster. You don't really need to do anything. You just need to slow down enough to hear him.
So if this episode helped you, make sure that you share it with someone who needs permission to slow down. And also, again, inside Miss Biz Nation, tell us what's one thing you're eliminating this week to create space for God. We appreciate you and are honored to be on this journey with you. We can't wait to help you, to encourage you, and show you how to grow personally, professionally, and spiritually.
If you found Miss Biz helpful, please leave a review and share with others.
You can follow us on social media at Miss Biz Podcast.
For legal questions or services, please visit boltzlegal.com.
And for digital marketing needs, please visit boltzmedia.com. Let's get biz done.